There are moments in life when the noise of the world grows so loud that it drowns out the quiet truth within you. Moments when doubt creeps in, whispering that you are not enough, that you have been overlooked, that perhaps you were never meant for anything greater. But listen carefully, because this is not one of those moments. This is the moment where truth rises. You were not created by accident. You were not placed on this earth as an afterthought. Before time began, before a single breath filled your lungs, there was intention behind your existence. There was purpose written into your soul. There was a calling placed upon your life that no one else can fulfill. And yes, God is proud when He looks at you. Not because you are perfect, not because you have never fallen, but because even in your breaking, even in your wandering, even in your silent battles, you have continued to rise. You have continued to seek. You have continued to carry a light that refuses to go out. You call it survival. He calls it faith. You see your scars as evidence of pain. He sees them as proof of perseverance. You question your worth because of what you've lost, what you've endured, what you've been through. But heaven does not measure you by your wounds, it measures you by your endurance, your resilience, your refusal to give up when everything in you wanted to surrender. Chosen one, hear this clearly. You are deeply loved, not conditionally, not temporarily, not only when you succeed or when you get everything right. You are loved in your confusion. You are loved in your waiting. You are loved even in the moments when you feel distant, when you feel unseen, when you feel forgotten, because you are not forgotten. There are doors that did not open, not because you were unworthy, but because they were not aligned with your destiny. There are people who walked away not because you were not enough, but because they were not assigned to your journey. There are delays that frustrated you, not because you were denied, but because you were being prepared. God does not abandon what He has chosen. And you are chosen. There is something different about you. You feel it, don't you? That pull towards something greater. That awareness that you were not meant to live a shallow life. That inner voice that keeps telling you to rise higher, to go deeper, to become more. That is not imagination. That is calling. And calling is not comfortable. It will stretch you. It will isolate you. It will demand growth when you would rather stay the same. It will lead you through seasons where nothing makes sense, where the path is unclear, where the answers are delayed, where faith is the only thing you have left. But even there, especially there, you are being shaped. Every tear you have cried has been seen. Every silent prayer has been heard. Every moment you thought you were alone, He was there, working, refining, positioning. You may not understand the timing, but timing is not yours burden to carry. Your responsibility is to trust, to keep walking, to keep believing, even when evidence seems absent. Because what is being built in you is greater than what is happening around you. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are in process. And when the time comes, when everything aligns, when preparation meets opportunity, when purpose meets position, you will understand why things unfolded the way they did. You will see that nothing was wasted. Not the pain, not the delay, not the struggle. It was all working together to shape the person you are becoming. So stand firm, lift your head, quiet the voices that tell you that you are less than, that you are overlooked, that you are insignificant, because none of that is truth. The truth is this: you are seen, you are chosen, you are deeply loved. And when God looks at you, He does not see failure. He sees potential. He sees strength. He sees someone who is still becoming everything they were created to be, and He is proud. So keep going, chosen one. You are closer than you think. Before you ever spoke your first word, before your name was whispered into existence by human lips, there was already a knowing about you. A recognition that did not come from this world, but from something eternal, something unchanging. You did not arrive here randomly, and your presence is not the result of chance colliding with coincidence. There was a deliberate act behind your life, a decision rooted in purpose that set your story into motion long before you became aware of it. You may look at your life and see fragments of moments that feel disconnected, seasons that seem confusing, paths that appear uncertain, but there is a thread running through all of it, a thread that has been carefully woven, not by accident, but by design. Even the parts that feel broken, even the chapters you wish you could erase, are somehow held within a greater plan that refuses to let your life be meaningless. There is something profound about being known before being seen. Before anyone affirmed you, before anyone doubted you, before the world tried to label or limit you, there was already a truth established about who you are. That truth does not shift with opinions, it does not weaken with failure, and it does not disappear in moments of doubt. It remains steady and unshaken, quietly reminding you that your identity was never meant to be defined by temporary circumstances. You have felt it, even if you could not explain it. That quiet sense that you are meant for something more. That subtle awareness that your life carries weight beyond the ordinary. It shows up in your restlessness when you try to settle for less. It speaks in the moments when you feel pulled toward growth, even when growth is uncomfortable. It lingers in your spirit when you recognize that you cannot fully belong to spaces that do not align with who you are becoming. This is not something you created. It is something placed within you. The call on your life did not begin when you became strong enough to handle it. It began long before, in a place where your weaknesses were already known and accounted for. There was no surprise in your struggles, no shock in your imperfections. Everything about you was seen, understood, and still, you were chosen. That is what makes this calling so powerful. It is not based on your performance. It does not depend on how well you have navigated every situation. It does not require perfection to remain valid. It exists because it was established with intention, and intention does not dissolve simply because the journey becomes difficult. There are moments when you question yourself, when you wonder if you misunderstood your path, if perhaps you imagined the sense of purpose that once felt so clear. You look at delays and assume they are signs of failure. You look at obstacles and interpret them as rejection. But what if those very things are part of the process that confirms your calling rather than cancels it? Being chosen does not mean being exempt from struggle. In many ways, it means the opposite. It means there is something within you that must be refined, something that must be strengthened, something that cannot remain in its original form if it is to carry the weight of what lies ahead. The pressure you feel is not proof that you are off track. It is often evidence that something is being shaped within you. You were not called because you had everything figured out. You were called because there is something in you that responds to growth, something that refuses to stay stagnant, something that continues to rise even after being pushed down. There is a resilience in you that you did not give yourself. It shows up in ways you cannot fully explain, especially in moments when giving up would have been easier. Even in your lowest moments, there has been something that kept you going. A quiet persistence, a refusal to completely surrender, a strength that seemed to come from somewhere beyond your own understanding. That is not accidental. That is part of the design. That is part of what it means to be chosen before you ever understood what that choice would require. You may have spent time comparing your journey to others, wondering why your path feels different, why your process seems longer, why your challenges feel heavier. But comparison cannot reveal purpose. It can only distort it. What has been placed on your life is specific to you, shaped in a way that cannot be duplicated or replaced. There are things you have endured that others would not have survived the same way. There are lessons you have learned that could not have been taught in easier circumstances. There is a depth being formed within you that requires experiences you may not have chosen, but that are nonetheless contributing to who you are becoming. And still, even with all of that, the call remains. It does not disappear when you feel lost. It does not weaken when you feel uncertain. It does not abandon you when you struggle to believe in yourself. It remains steady and persistent, waiting for you to recognize what has always been true. You were never overlooked in the moment of your creation. You were never an afterthought. There was no hesitation in the decision that brought you into existence. You were seen fully, known completely, and still considered worthy of purpose. That is why there is something within you that refuses to accept a life without meaning. That is why you feel unsettled when you try to ignore the deeper pull within your spirit. That is why you cannot fully silence the voice that calls you towards something greater, even when you try to distract yourself with temporary comfort. Because what is within you cannot be undone. The world may try to define you by your past, by your mistakes, by the ways you have fallen short. It may attempt to convince you that you are limited, that you are ordinary, that you should shrink yourself to fit expectations that were never meant for you. But the truth of your calling does not come from the world, and it cannot be erased by it. There is a difference between being shaped by your experiences and being defined by them. You have been shaped, yes. You have been influenced, challenged, stretched. But your core identity, the reason you are here, the purpose placed upon your life, exists beyond all of that. It is deeper, it is stronger, unchanging. And whether you fully understand it right now or not, whether you feel aligned with it or distant from it, it continues to exist within you, waiting for you to step into it more fully, to grow into it more deeply, To recognize that the call on your life began long before you knew how to answer it. There are seasons in your life that feel full, where everything seems to align, where you can almost trace the evidence of grace in every direction you look. In those moments, it is easier to believe that you are loved. It feels natural to accept it when life is steady, when doors open without resistance, when your heart is not carrying the weight of unanswered questions. Love feels visible then, almost tangible, like something you can point to and say, "There it is, I see it clearly." But life does not remain in one season. There are other times, quieter, heavier, more uncertain, where that same love feels distant, not because it has disappeared, but because your circumstances have shifted in a way that makes it harder to recognize. These are the moments that test your understanding, the moments that challenge what you believe about your worth and your place in the greater story. It is in these moments that a deeper truth begins to surface. Love that only exists when life is easy is not the kind of love that was spoken over you. The love tied to your life is not fragile, not conditional, not dependent on your ability to hold everything together. It does not fade when you feel weak. It does not withdraw when you make mistakes. It does not turn away when you question, when you doubt, when you struggle to understand what is happening around you. It remains. There is something powerful about a love that does not fluctuate with your performance. You have been taught in many ways to associate love with approval, to connect it with achievement, to measure it based on how well you meet expectations. When you succeed, you feel worthy. When you fall short, you begin to question whether that worth has diminished. But the love that surrounds your life does not operate on that system. It does not rise when you are strong and falls when you are weak. It does not increase when you are confident and decrease when you are uncertain. It is not something you earn, and it is not something you can lose simply because you have not lived perfectly. It exists outside of all of that. There have been moments when you felt like you had to hide parts of yourself, when you believed that only the strongest, most put-together version of you was acceptable. You learned to present the pieces that seemed worthy and conceal the ones that felt broken. You thought love required you to be whole before you could receive it. But that is not truth. The love that covers your life meets you in your incompleteness. It does not wait for you to fix yourself before it reaches you. It does not demand that you have everything figured out before it remains present. It sees you fully, the strength and the struggle, the clarity and the confusion, and it does not turn away. Even in your lowest points, even in the moments you would rather forget, there has been a presence that did not leave. You may not have recognized it at the time. You may have felt alone, abandoned, uncertain of where to turn. But there was still something holding you together, something keeping you from completely falling apart. That was not coincidence. That was love remaining when everything else felt unstable. You have survived things that should have broken you in ways that could not be repaired. You have walked through situations that left you questioning your strength, your direction, even your identity. And yet, here you are, not untouched, not changed, but still standing, still moving forward, still carrying a light that has not been extinguished. There is a reason for that. You were never meant to navigate your life disconnected from love. Even when you have felt distant from it, even when you have doubted its presence, it has not distanced itself from you. It has remained steady, even when your perception of it has shifted. There is a difference between love being absent and love being unseen. In difficult seasons, it often becomes unseen, hidden beneath layers of pain, disappointment, and confusion. You begin to focus on what is not working, on what has been lost, on what feels delayed. Your perspective narrows, and in that narrowing, it becomes harder to recognize what is still holding you. But if you look closely, if you allow yourself to reflect honestly, you will begin to notice something. You were sustained in ways you did not fully acknowledge. There were moments when strength showed up that you did not think you had. There were times when clarity came just when you needed it, even if it was not in the way you expected. There were instances where things did not fall apart completely, even when it seemed like they would. Those are not random occurrences. They are evidence. Evidence that love has been present in every season, not just the ones that felt good, not just the ones that made sense, but even in the ones that left you questioning everything. You are not loved in fragments. You are not loved in portions that come and go depending on how your life unfolds. You are loved fully, consistently, and without interruption, even when your experience does not always reflect that reality. There are layers to this love that you are still learning to understand. It is deeper than emotion, deeper than temporary comfort, deeper than what can be easily explained. It is not always loud, not always obvious, not always expressed in ways that align with your expectations. Sometimes it shows up as protection you did not recognize. Sometimes it shows up as redirection you did not want. Sometimes it shows up as endurance when relief does not come immediately. And sometimes it shows up as quiet presence, simply refusing to leave, even when everything else feels uncertain. You may not always feel it. You may not always understand it. But its presence is not determined by your awareness of it. It continues regardless. And as you move through different seasons, as you experience both the highs and the lows, as you navigate moments of clarity and moments of confusion, this truth remains constant beneath it all, unshaken by circumstance, untouched by doubt, and unaffected by the shifting nature of your experiences you have never stepped into a single day of your life without being covered by it. You have never faced a moment where it was not already there. You have never been placed in a season where it ceased to exist. There are seasons in your life that feel hidden, where nothing seems to be moving, where progress is not visible, and where the silence around you feels heavier than any noise you have ever known. These are the moments that test your patience in ways you did not expect, the moments where you begin to question whether anything meaningful is actually happening beneath the surface. You look around and see others advancing, achieving, stepping into opportunities that you have been waiting for, and it becomes difficult not to compare. It becomes difficult not to wonder why your path feels slower, why your journey seems to require more waiting, more endurance, more unseen effort. It can feel as though you have been placed on pause while the rest of the world continues forward. But what feels like stillness is not the absence of movement. There is a kind of work that happens in hidden places, a kind of transformation that does not announce itself loudly or reveal immediate results. It is quiet, often unnoticed, and sometimes misunderstood. It does not provide instant validation, and it rarely gives you the satisfaction of visible progress. Yet it is in these hidden seasons that some of the most important shaping takes place. You are being prepared in ways that cannot be rushed. There are things within you that need to be strengthened before they can carry what is ahead. There are perspectives that need to shift, patterns that need to break, and depths that need to be formed. None of this can happen instantly, and none of it can be sustained without time, pressure, and intentional refinement. It is easy to desire the outcome while overlooking the process required to sustain it. You may feel ready for what you have been asking for. You may believe that you have the capacity to step into the next level of your life. But readiness is not only about desire. It is about alignment. It is about becoming the kind of person who can hold what they have been given without being overwhelmed by it. There are things you have asked for that carry weight, responsibility, influence, impact. These are not light things, and they cannot be handled carelessly. They require a foundation that is strong enough to support them, a mindset that is steady enough to navigate them, and a character that is deep enough to remain grounded within them. That kind of foundation is not built in moments of ease. It is built in the hidden places. It is built when no one is watching, when there is no applause, when there is no recognition. It is built in the choices you make daily, in the discipline you maintain even when motivation fades, in the way you continue to grow, even when it feels like no one notices. You are not being overlooked in these moments. You are being developed. There is a difference between being delayed and being prepared. Delay feels like denial. It feels like something has been withheld from you, like you are being kept from what you deserve. But preparation has a different purpose. It is not about withholding. It is about equipping. It is about ensuring that when the time comes, you are not stepping into something prematurely, because premature arrival can lead to unnecessary loss. If you step into something before you are ready to sustain it, it can slip through your hands. Not because you were never meant to have it, but because the foundation required to hold it was not fully established. So the process continues, even when you do not fully understand it, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it challenges your patience. There are internal shifts happening within you that cannot always be measured externally. Your thinking is evolving. Your awareness is deepening. Your resilience is increasing in ways that you may not fully recognize yet. You are learning how to respond differently. You are learning how to endure without breaking. You are learning how to trust without constant reassurance. These are not small things. They are essential. There have been moments where you wanted immediate answers, where you wished for clarity to come quickly, where you hoped for a clear sign that everything was moving in the right direction. But clarity is not always given in advance. Sometimes it comes after you have already moved. forward after you have already trusted, after you have already endured. And in that process, something within you changes. You become less dependent on external confirmation and more anchored in internal conviction. You begin to recognize that not everything requires immediate understanding to still hold meaning. You start to see that growth does not always feel like progress, and progress does not always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like staying. Sometimes it looks like continuing. Sometimes it looks like holding on when it would be easier to let go. There is strength being built in you through repetition, through persistence, through the quiet decisions you make every day to keep going. That strength is not always visible, but it is real. It is forming a stability within you that will support you when things begin to accelerate. Because there will come a time when things do move, when opportunities begin to align, when the waiting transitions into action, and when that moment comes, everything that felt slow will suddenly make sense. You will realize that the time you spent in preparation was not wasted. It was necessary. It was shaping you in ways that could not have happened under different circumstances. It was building something within you that will allow you to step forward with confidence rather than uncertainty. You are not stuck. You are being positioned. There are details being arranged that you cannot see, connections being aligned that you are not yet aware of, outcomes being formed beyond your current perspective. Not everything is meant to be visible at once. Not everything is meant to be understood immediately. Some things are meant to unfold gradually. And as they do, you are growing into the version of yourself that can meet them fully. You are becoming more aware, more grounded, more prepared to handle what is ahead. The things that once overwhelmed you are beginning to lose their hold. The areas where you once felt uncertain are slowly becoming places of strength. This is not accidental. It is the result of the process you are in. Even when it feels slow, even when it feels hidden, even when it feels like nothing is changing, something is happening. Something is shifting within you. Something is being built beneath the surface that will eventually rise into view, not suddenly, but as a continuation of everything that has been quietly taking place all along. There is a voice within you that does not sound like fear, even though fear often tries to speak over it. It does not rush you, yet it does not allow you to remain where you are. It does not shame you, yet it refuses to let you settle into versions of yourself that are smaller than what you are capable of becoming. It is steady, persistent, and at times almost unsettling in its consistency. You have tried to ignore it before. You have tried to quiet it with distractions, to drown it out with noise, to convince yourself that it is easier to stay where things feel familiar. Because familiarity, even when it is limiting, can feel safer than the unknown. It can feel more manageable than stepping into something that requires growth, change, and the willingness to leave behind what no longer fits. But that voice does not disappear. It continues to rise, not loudly, not forcefully, but with a kind of quiet authority that is difficult to dismiss completely. It shows up in your thoughts when you are alone, in your reflections when you pause long enough to be honest with yourself. It appears in moments when you recognize that something in your life no longer aligns with who you are becoming. This is not coincidence. This is not random. This is the call that continues to reach for you, even when you hesitate to respond. There is a difference between external pressure and internal calling. External pressure pushes you to conform, to meet expectations that may not truly belong to you. It is often loud, urgent, and rooted in comparison. It tells you to move quickly, to achieve visibly, to prove your worth in ways that others can recognize. But internal calling operates differently. It invites rather than forces. It guides rather than demands. It challenges you, but not in a way that strips you of your identity. Instead, it reveals more of it. You may not always understand where it is leading you. In fact, most of the time you will not. It rarely provides a complete map. It does not outline every step in advance. It does not guarantee comfort or predictability. What it offers instead is direction, a sense of movement that requires trust even when clarity is limited. And that is where resistance often begins. Because stepping into something you cannot fully see requires a different kind of courage. It requires you to move beyond what is familiar, beyond what feels controlled, beyond what can be easily explained. It requires you to release the need to have everything figured out before you take the next step. There are parts of you that want certainty, that want assurance, that want to know exactly how things will unfold before you commit to the process. But calling does not function within those boundaries. It asks you to trust in a way that stretches your understanding. It asks you to take steps that may not make sense to others, decisions that may not be immediately validated, paths that may not look conventional. And in doing so, it begins to separate you from environments, mindsets, and even relationships that no longer align with where you are being led. This can feel isolating. It can feel like you are outgrowing spaces that once felt comfortable, like you are becoming unfamiliar even to people who have known you for a long time. There may be moments when you question whether this change is necessary, whether it would be easier to remain the same, to avoid the discomfort that comes with growth. But growth always requires release. You cannot carry everything with you into what is ahead. Some things must be left behind, not because they were inherently wrong, but because they are no longer aligned with the direction you are moving in. This includes old patterns of thinking, habits that once served you but now limit you, and beliefs that were shaped in seasons where you had not yet become who you are now becoming. The voice within you recognizes this, even when you struggle to accept it. It continues to call you forward, not into perfection, but into alignment, not into ease, but into purpose, not into a life without challenge, but into a life that carries meaning beyond temporary comfort. There are moments when you will feel stretched, when the gap between where you are and where you feel called to be becomes more noticeable. This gap can create tension, a sense of urgency that makes you aware of the work that still needs to be done. But this awareness is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to awaken you, to show you that there is more within you than what has been expressed so far, to remind you that your current state is not your final form. You are in motion, even when it feels slow. You are evolving, even when it feels subtle. And the voice that calls you higher is not asking you to become someone else. It is asking you to become more fully yourself, to step into the depth of who you were always meant to be, without shrinking, without hesitation, without allowing fear to dictate your direction. There will be moments when you doubt your ability to follow this calling. Moments when the weight of it feels too heavy, when the uncertainty feels too overwhelming, when the path ahead feels too unclear. In those moments, it is easy to retreat, to convince yourself that staying where you are is enough. But deep down, you know. You know that settling will not satisfy you. You know that ignoring the call will not silence it. You know that there is something within you that is meant to be expressed, developed, and lived out in a way that goes beyond surface-level existence. This knowing does not come from external validation. It comes from within. And it continues to rise again and again, not to pressure you, but to remind you. To remind you that you are capable of more. To remind you that your life carries direction, even when you cannot fully see it. To remind you that the discomfort you feel is not a sign that something is wrong, but often a sign that something is changing. You are being drawn upward, not in a way that disconnects you from who you are, but in a way that deepens your understanding of it. The process is not always smooth. It is not always clear. It requires patience, trust, and a willingness to continue even when the outcome is not immediately visible. But the voice remains, steady, consistent, calling you beyond what is familiar, beyond what is comfortable, beyond what is easy, and into a space where growth is not optional, where alignment becomes necessary, and where the life you are living begins to reflect the deeper truth that has always existed within you. There are moments when silence feels like absence, when the lack of visible movement makes you question whether anything is happening at all. You look around, searching for signs, for confirmation, for something that reassures you that you are still seen, still remembered, still part of something greater than what you can currently perceive. But instead of clarity, you find stillness. Instead of answers, you encounter waiting. And in that waiting, thoughts begin to form. You start to wonder if you have been overlooked, if perhaps your time has passed, if the things you once believed about your life were only temporary feelings that no longer hold meaning. You question whether you are still on the right path, whether your efforts matter, whether your existence carries the same significance it once seemed to hold. But what feels like silence is not the same as being forgotten. There is a difference between something not being revealed and something not existing. Just because you cannot see the movement does not mean there is none. Just because you do not have immediate answers does not mean there are no answers being formed. There is a deeper process taking place, one that does not rely on constant visibility to remain active. You are still within that process, even now. Even here. There is a tendency to associate remembrance with visibility. You feel remembered when you are acknowledged, when your presence is recognized, when your contributions are seen and affirmed. And when those things are absent, it can feel as though you have faded into the background, as though your life is no longer being noticed in the way it once was. But true remembrance does not depend on constant recognition. It is not sustained by how often you are affirmed by others or how frequently your progress is highlighted. It exists independently of those things, rooted in something far more stable than external validation. You have not been set aside. You have not been misplaced. You have not been removed from the path that was designed for you. There are layers to your life that are still unfolding, pieces that are still coming together in ways you cannot yet fully understand. The absence of immediate clarity does not mean the absence of direction. It simply means that not everything is meant to be revealed at once. There is timing involved. There is alignment required. There are aspects of your journey that must develop in sequence, not all at the same time, not all in the same way. And while that can feel frustrating, especially when you desire progress and movement, it is also what ensures that what is built in your life is sustainable, rather than temporary. You are not being forgotten in the waiting. You are being positioned within it. There are moments when you feel like you are standing still, but in reality, you are being placed exactly where you need to be for what is ahead. The stillness is not a sign of stagnation. It is a space where things are being arranged, where details are being aligned, where preparation continues even when it is not immediately visible. You may not always feel growth happening. You may not always recognize the changes within yourself as they occur, but that does not mean they are not taking place. There is a quiet transformation that happens over time, one that does not announce itself loudly, one that does not always come with dramatic shifts or sudden realizations. It is subtle, gradual, and often only recognized when you look back and realize how much has changed without you fully noticing it in the moment. You are not the same person you once were. Your perspective has shifted. Your awareness has deepened. Your strength has increased in ways that may not always be obvious, but are undeniably present. These changes are part of your becoming. You are not meant to remain static. You are not meant to stay in one place indefinitely. You are in motion, even when it feels slow, even when it feels like nothing is happening, even when the progress you desire seems delayed. There is a continuity to your life that cannot be interrupted by moments of uncertainty. Even when you feel disconnected, you are still connected. Even when you feel distant, you are still within reach. Even when you feel uncertain, you are still being guided. There is something steady beneath the surface of your experiences, something that does not shift with your emotions, something that remains constant even when everything around you feels unstable. That steadiness is what holds you. It is what keeps you from drifting too far. It is what brings you back, again and again, to the understanding that your life is not random, that your presence is not accidental, that your journey is not without direction. You are remembered in ways that go beyond what you can see. You are accounted for in ways that do not always reveal themselves immediately. You are part of something that continues to unfold, regardless of whether you can fully trace its movement in every moment. There is no part of your life that has been dismissed, no season that has been ignored, no experience that has been overlooked. Everything is being held within a larger framework, one that does not lose track of details, one that does not forget the significance of your path. You may not always understand why certain things happen the way they do. You may not always see the purpose behind the timing of events. You may not always feel certain about where you are being led, but uncertainty does not erase intention. It does not cancel purpose. It does not remove you from the process of becoming. You are still becoming, even in the waiting, even in the silence, even in the moments where you feel unseen. There is a continuity to your growth that does not stop simply because your awareness of it fluctuates. It continues beneath the surface, building, shaping, forming something that will eventually become clear in ways that you cannot yet fully comprehend. You are not lost within your own story. You are not drifting without direction. You are not forgotten in the unfolding of your life. You are being carried through it, step by step, moment by moment, in ways that may not always be visible, but are always present, always active, always moving you forward into the fullness of who you are meant to become.